Ho, ho, ho for some hoops, hoops, hoops. Happy holidays here from Back Sports Page and the Hardwood Huddle. I'm Randy Zellea from backsportspage.com. And joining me, as always, the man who is not in COVID protocol in the NBA. He is our Sith leader. He is the Jedi Knight. He is Lord Vader himself. He is Mr. Bill Ingram. Bill, happy holidays. Good to see you, my brother.
You too, my friend. I think the Force actually keeps you safe from COVID. That's my so.
I literally just seen there's
a bunch of shots and a booster.
I literally just had I just imagined in my head Luke Skywalker saying, "I'm vaccinated."
Yeah,
that would be great. So, listen, last time we were on the air, we were with Derek Stafford. Great episode with him, and I got to tell we're going to be joined by Seth Kaplan from the Seth and Sean Show from backsportspage.com momentarily. But man, I gotta tell you, man, the NBA minus the COVID positive test, it's been an interesting season so far.
It has. We've had a lot of interesting injuries. We've had some teams overachieve, some teams underachieve, and but for the most part, the teams we expected to be good are good. The teams we expected to dominate are dominating, with the exception of Miami because they've had so many people hurt. But they were dominating when they were healthy. And then, of course, Steph Curry has done what we knew he would do, which was break the all-time record for three-point shooting, and did it in the classy way that Steph Curry does everything. So there's been plenty of interesting things, plenty of things to get excited about if you're a Golden State Warriors fan or a Utah Jazz fan or a Milwaukee Bucks fan. They've gotten healthy. There's lots of interesting storylines going on around the league.
And some news broke today about Zion Williamson. He received a foot injection, and he's been very, very frustrated with his recovery from his surgery. I gotta tell you, man, Zion Williamson. You know how there's a guy who comes into the league with hype, and just maybe the hype was too big for what it really was. I think that's Zion. I just am not buying the stock in Zion Williamson. He's always hurt. It seems like he's never going to be able to play an 82-game season. Not that that's a mandatory thing in the league anymore, but for all the hype that he gets, he hasn't sniffed the playoffs yet.
The name that comes to mind is Greg Oden.
Yeah, no, this is better than Greg Oden.
The piece that better. Really put the Blazers in the finals, and with LaMarcus Aldridge and Brandon Roy. And dude just never did get healthy. Never did.
The thing is, I don't look at him as Greg Oden-like, but I do look at him as a guy. I'm trying to put my finger on who he is, but this is now going into season number 3. And season number 3, he's always had something holding him back as far as injury. And I got to tell you, if you remember correctly, Amari Stoudemire, maybe his 3rd or 4th year, went down with a knee injury, and it forced him to change his game.
Absolutely.
I think Zion Williamson's going to have to learn a whole, as they say in the wrestling world, he's going to have to go away and learn a new hold, because he's not going to have the same explosiveness when he comes back, especially with foot and knee injuries.
Well, Amari had that what was that, where they puncture holes in the knee and then they fill it in with, what's the word, microfracture. He had microfracture surgery on that knee, and you're no longer the high-flying guy. Now you're going to operate, you can still operate in the paint. And he was incredible. I mean, one of the great success stories as far as players who have had that surgery. So many players just were never the same. And Amari found a way to be an all-star, adjusting to life with that surgery, how it changed his game. Can Zion do that? I don't know. That's, at this point, we've seen Zion so little. But in the meantime, you've got a franchise that's foundering. You've got a general manager in David Griffin, who is, talk about on the bubble. You've already gone through a coach. How many people's careers get derailed because that pick, which was the no-brainer, no one questioned, Zion was it. That was every bit the shoe-in as LeBron James or this year with Cade. There was no second guessing that pick, and then to have his career be nothing so far.
And I got to tell you too, with you saying that, Zion Williamson has proven he has not been happy in New Orleans since he's got there. You knew it on draft night. He wanted to be a member of the New York Knicks, loves playing in Madison Square Garden. This will be the New York Knicks of luck.
Yeah, right?
Good news. Good news. We signed Zion Williamson's knee. And then with that being said, so that was the top news story besides all the COVID COVID protocol news.
Yesterday, Tim McMahon, who I was with all the time at American Airlines Center when I was covering the Mavs, broke. Well, not really break a story, but he wrote a story that kind of explained the divorce with Rick Carlisle.
Yes, and I did see that story. Yeah,
filled in some gaps in a way that we knew the essentials of it. We knew that Luka and Rick weren't the best of buddies. We didn't exactly know why, and we didn't exactly know what the hell was going on in the first round of the playoffs last year. Because watching it, you're like, "What? They've just all quit." Including Rick, everyone just quit except Luka. And that article filled in the fact that Rick, and I think you go back to the pick where he wanted the Mavs to draft Donovan Mitchell for obvious reasons. And instead, the Mavs being the Mavs on draft night, they drafted Dennis Smith Jr., who never, is even still in the league. He's probably getting paid by New York, but
listen, you're on New York's payroll right now, so I don't know.
Aren't they still paying Isaiah Thomas, the player, not the older player, not the young guy that just signed with the Lakers? But then to see some of it, though, I don't understand. To say that Rick was unwilling to use Kristaps Porzingis in the paint, I find very disingenuous because he doesn't play in the paint for Jason Kidd either. Their last game, he was, I think, 1 for 7 from 3-point range. He is so in love with his 3-point shot, and he's just not a good 3-point shooter. He's an okay 3-point shooter, but he's not Dirk. He's not a good 3-point shooter. Where you want him is in the paint. And I get the feeling that Rick realized Porzingis was just not going to play there. And he said, fine, if you're not going to play there, then go stand in the corner, right? Like,
I think, and not only Rick, but I think the Mavericks fans wanted Porzingis to be the second coming of Dirk Nowitzki, and he's just not that. He is he's a guy who's going to give you about 50 to 60 games a year, maybe between 17 and 23 points a game, and he is a second option at best. He is not a number one. He is not Batman, as we like to say here on the show. He is definitely a Robin in that sense.
When he's healthy. But the problem is he's not healthy enough to be your dependable Robin. You really need him to be your third guy, but he makes too much money and you gave up too much. That's just the thing that kills me. I loved watching Dirk do what players don't do anymore, which was, hey, the Mavericks essentially drafted him. The Bucks drafted him, but they drafted him so they could trade him to Dallas. It was already done. So essentially the Mavs drafted Dirk, and he spent his entire career here in Dallas, and that was awesome. Even at the end where it's like he still had game and the Mavs didn't, and like Houston wanted him, Golden State, you're like, man, Dirk, go get another ring. But he didn't do that. He stayed. I really have a hard time seeing Luka spend his entire career in Dallas if the best they can put around him is Kristaps Porzingis. And not to knock Tim Hardaway Jr., he's a good player, but that was your big offseason.
But he's not a three. He's not a Robin. He's not even Alfred. He's not even Alfred in that situation. Dallas doesn't have depth.
Rick Carlisle and this going on with Rick and that's all fine. But the Mavs are a 500 team. And that's with Jason Kidd, who we are on the record on this show as well. I liked Jason Kidd as a player, really liked working with him when he was at the Mavs. But is he a coach who's going to transform the Mavericks into a playoff team with the roster as constructed? No way. No coach could do that.
No, definitely not. And let's bring on our good friend Seth Kaplan from the Seth and Sean Show here at backsportspage.com. Seth, what's up, brother?
Hey, Randy, how you doing? Hey, Bill. Long time no speak.
Yeah.
So where We're talking right now about some of the news stories going around the NBA, non-COVID protocol news stories.
Are there stories going around the NBA non-NBA non-COVID protocol?
Well, we just discussed the Zion Williamson situation on how Zion. Look, I think that the bullet has left the gun on him. I just don't see him being this player that a franchise can build around. He can't even get on the court. This is the third season where he's not going to be playing more than 50 games.
Now, if you remember a couple of years ago in the big controversy, and everyone loved the Zion pick, and you had that number 2 in Memphis, fell to Memphis from Murray State. And I remember Randy and you and I talked about this, that I loved at that point, loved college basketball. And I watched him, and God, he was beautiful to watch. And he's the best. Look, Morant is the best young point guard in the NBA. And you look at Memphis, and they're a slow build. They got some pieces, but they're not there. New Orleans is a mess.
Totally.
He's not motivated to be there. He's not motivated in general, it doesn't seem.
Mm-hmm.
Again, maybe because there's no real leadership there. There's no one who's going to kick. When the rookie coming in is the franchise, you've got a problem. And so to him, he waits out his contract. He does whatever he needs to do. He doesn't re-sign for whatever they're going to offer. And they go from there. Look, New Orleans is a really bad franchise with not much upside at this point. And, you kind of hoped after the Anthony Davis deal, bringing in Ball and Ingram and Hart, that there'd be some build. Just hasn't happened, and it doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon.
And they've taken like 2 steps backward from that even. Like now you don't even have what do you have? Brandon Ingram. What else do you have?
Nothing.
And then you move Steven Adams. You don't even have toughness anymore. Now you oh my gosh.
No, they're give or take, they're a half a step above the Oklahoma Cities and but at least Oklahoma City is playing hard.
Yeah.
Houston's won 7 in a row or 7 once. New Orleans could end up being the worst team in the NBA this year, which says a lot.
I don't know. Detroit's got them beat right now. Only 4 wins, 4-22.
Yeah, but at least you're building. Weaver's broken down this team and built. Look, you bring in Cade. You have young, very young players, and you hope some materialize and some aren't going to. You see what happens. But New Orleans doesn't even have really young talent anymore. They're like the New York Giants of the NBA. They have overpriced mediocrity, and they're going nowhere.
Well, would you guys believe me if I told you the hottest team in the Eastern Conference right now is the Cleveland Cavaliers?
And that's without Sexton.
That's without Colin Sexton.
But look, that's a team. They're so good. Even Kevin Love is starting to care.
Taking him about 5 years.
You had all those young picks, pick after pick after pick. You put all these young players together, and it's happening the way it's supposed to happen. They're all coming into their own together, and it's really something to see.
And you wonder now. Garland is a borderline all-star,
mm-hmm.
and now Sexton is. What do you do with Sexton? No, the trade value has always been a bit up in the air anyway because he's a scorer, but he's not a one on a good team.
No,
and no one's going to put up with him that has a real talent with what seems like what he is on the team. So I don't know what the value is for him, but between him and between Okoro and Garland and Allen and Mobley, you've got some nice pieces.
Allen's playing very well. Ricky Rubio has been a nice piece for that team, who's played very well for them. Look, this is a team that has turned the East a little bit. I think Cleveland and Chicago are the teams that we weren't expecting to see this high in the Eastern Conference. We thought maybe they'd be in that fighting for the 9th or 10th play-in spot. I'm looking at the Eastern Conference, Seth and Bill. I got to tell you, man. We spoke about Miami about once they get healthy, once they get Bam back, once they get their guys back, they're going to be a force. But you look at the rest of the top 10. If I would have told you in the beginning of the season, Boston, Atlanta, and Philadelphia were going to be 3 out of 4 teams on the bottom half of the play-in, in the play-in situation, I probably would have called you a liar at this point.
Yeah, Atlanta especially. I really thought Atlanta would be in the 4-3-4-5 range. I absolutely thought Chicago had the best. Chicago and Miami had the best off seasons of any teams in the league.
They won the preseason. They definitely did win the preseason.
I'll be honest. I loved the Lonzo deal. I did not love the DeRozan deal. I didn't think it made a lot of sense because I didn't think it was a team that really was going to challenge. And as nice a scorer as DeRozan is, he's not a guy you need at $30 million a year if you're not challenging for anything. He's an extra piece. But they've been excellent.
I liked it from the standpoint of DeRozan. I thought he would be the third guy, and that was the perfect role for him because San Antonio tried to make him the first guy, and they tried to make him Batman. They tried to make him Robin. They tried to make LaMarcus Aldridge Batman. They tried to make LaMarcus Robin. Neither one of those guys wanted to in any way, shape, or form. And so I thought, well, you put him in Chicago where you've already added so many, Vucevic and some other key guys. Okay, now DeRozan can be the guy who shows up every 5th game and then gives you 12 or 15 points sort of on an average, and that'll be great. But instead, DeRozan has risen as almost the star of the team a lot of nights. So didn't see that coming. I thought it would work well, but I didn't think he would be. It's like all of a sudden he's remembered what it means to dominate a game. So that's really been why Chicago is, if they're overachieving, that's why.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'll be honest. I didn't see Cleveland going. I don't think anyone saw Cleveland.
No,
I don't buy it.
I think with DeRozan, this is the type of player DeRozan was when he was in Toronto in the beginning when he first came into the league. He eventually elevated his game and was able to get to a level where we were talking about him as a possible all-star, lower-level all-star, and now he's actually playing like that in Chicago. Chicago is a team, man, if they finish in the top 4, everyone's going to want to play that team in the first round of the playoffs because of the inexperience.
You know what, though? If they're the top 4, Billy Donovan should be the coach of the year.
Absolutely.
There shouldn't even be a discussion.
I think he's already coach of the year.
He is as of now, but it's hard to go too far in because we're still a third into the season.
Yeah.
I don't want to jump too crazy.
It's funny because, our first show of the season, I think we were like 5 games in or 8 games into the season, and we were talking about all the trends that, 2 months from now, we get to Christmas and here we are. What was not going to be a story? Sacramento looked so good those first 5 or 6 games. Harrison Barnes was an MVP candidate. Like, this team at Christmas, this team is not going to be good. And they're not. Those early trends, you're so right. We have a bigger sample size now. But as we see the early stuff where you like, oh, wow, many of those things are – the league is turning to what you expect. The Lakers be 0-80,
nobody like I saw the Washington Wizards was up in the top 6 for a while, and now they're starting to come back to where they're supposed to be.
That's the big thing. They had so many changes where so much of their roster was different, and teams they have to play them once or twice, and then the scouting report starts to get around the league, and now they start to face a defense that knows what's coming, and do they have the ability to adjust to that? Kind of like Jeremy Lin. Remember, Jeremy Lin was amazing for about 2 weeks before the All-Star.
10 games of greatness.
And then the film got around, and then he sort of looked like Jeremy Lin looked forever.
And then, are we safe? Are we safe to say that Boston Celtics are just not a good basketball team this year?
Yeah.
Are we there?
I think we came to that conclusion last year.
Mm-hmm.
You have 2 great swingmen. Robert Williams is a developing talent. but you don't have much else. And Marcus Smart at $20 million a year. I get why you did it, but he's not a $20 million a year point guard anywhere other than Boston. You have no trade assets. You have no bench. Both Sean and I had them in the play-in, because we didn't know really what to make of the division, because the Nets are a step above, but the next four teams literally, because nobody knew how Philly was going to play out with the Simmons issue. Toronto is still very talented. I mean, think about it. Yes, Kawhi is 2 years gone, but they're still 2 years from a title. I didn't mind the Lowry move as much as everyone else did. I thought $33 million a year for Lowry was absurd anyway at this point in his career.
In Toronto. Yeah.
What'd you say? And Dragic's a tragically underrated player. He just has to stay healthy.
Yep.
I love Scotty Barnes, who was my pick for Rookie of the Year. But yeah, Boston's going nowhere. And what do you even do? You can't trade one of your two 25-year-old studs.
No.
You have nothing else.
No.
That's as much as they got with those draft picks.
Danny Ainge was like, "Oh, thank you very much for handing me this." Brad Stevens is, and then Ainge has another job. But that's one of the owners of the Jazz is a very good friend of his. So I was talking to one of their other front office guys. I was like, "You guys now have the most expensive front office in the league." Yeah. Ainge doesn't do anything. Like, everything that needs to be done to this team is done. He doesn't do something well that you need done. The Jazz are stock. The Rudy Gay tweak was amazing. Like, what?
Well, and not only that, but Utah also has assets. That's the thing that's even more scary. Is they have draft assets. They have all these different assets. They're in really, really, really good shape, guys. Let's transition over to the West. And look, the Warriors are the Warriors. We knew eventually you don't have Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins on your team, and Steve Kerr as a coach, and you're going to keep missing the playoffs or have to go in the play-in. They're back, and they're back with a vengeance. Andrew Wiggins is actually looking like he's a real NBA player, and they don't even have Klay Thompson yet.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, what's going on here? Is this the Warrior revenge tour this year?
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, you have young talent that you can trade because they're so deep. If you want to make the run at a center like Miles Turner and you want to throw Weissman at him, go ahead. Thompson will be back in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Curry, although Curry wouldn't be my MVP, Curry is a top 5 player in the league, playing like it. Green looks motivated. As you said, Wiggins is looking for the first time like the guy that you thought would be the player coming out as the number 1 pick in the draft. They're not tired because they haven't done anything a lot. They haven't played in the playoffs the last 2 years. We saw last year how exhausted the Lakers were going in after the bubble. That's not an issue with this Golden State team. They're relatively rested. They have a good mix of youth and veterans. They're well coached, and they're going to be a pain in the neck for any team going forward.
Well, that and the thing we talked about last year with the Warriors was they had all that time without Steph and Klay, and then still without Klay. And you put guys like Jordan Poole in a situation where go ahead, go play, make mistakes. We lose, oh well. Learn your lessons in games, in real games on a real team where the games matter, but you're not expected to win. And they did that. And now look at Jordan Poole. Like, there are nights where you don't even think about Klay Thompson not being there because he's good. So, yeah, I think having those young guys who are able to make mistakes now, they've made them. Now they've learned from them. Now they're ready. And you see that team playing defense they're
like no Golden State team we've seen play defense since the Nate Thurman days.
Their defense was Klay and Steph hitting threes all night.
Yeah.
Now we'll see how Klay looks. Obviously, I can't imagine. It's going to take to the playoffs to work him really.
But they have time to acclimate.
They do.
They're not a team that needs to be the 1 seed or the 2 seed. It is more important for him to get reacclimated to playing and be ready for the playoffs. than it is for them to be the one. Like Utah needs the one.
Yeah.
Phoenix needs a 1 or a 2 or something along those lines.
I think the Lakers need it too.
The Lakers need a lot of things. The Lakers need youth.
They're not going to get.
Yeah, you're 100% on the money on that. Yeah,
They're going to want the second round when they get eliminated in the first.
I mean, when you're talking 20 games in that Westbrook is already on the trade block, who is going to trade for a $45 million a year point guard who has never let it? He's just there's no value there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are you going to do?
Hi, this is Jim Dolan. I wanted to see if we could talk about Russell Westbrook.
Well, if there's one team that would probably do it, that team, that was the team I had falling down pretty hard. Randy, we've talked about this.
Yeah,
they overachieved like crazy last year, and typically Thibodeau teams take steps back pretty quickly because they overplay starters too much and everyone gets tired. And this team is just not that talented. They're just not.
Julius Randle is a Batman for the Knicks right now, but he is looked at as one of the cops who was stuck underground during the Dark Knight for the rest of the league.
I've seen, my God, you had more Batman references in 12 minutes than I've had in 10 years on my show. My goodness. I didn't realize I had to watch The Dark Knight Returns before I came on.
It's either that or Star Wars because of Bill. It's one of the two.
I'm happier with Batman.
Okay. Yeah. I listen, I'm not going to argue that point. So one of the things that we were discussing also over the last couple of shows has been the Charlotte Hornets. And look, they're 16-14, a very young team. I watched a couple of their games. They got destroyed by Dallas a couple of weeks ago. And I look at that team and I look to see what their ceiling really is. I want to ask both of you, starting with Bill, the Charlotte Hornet team, what do you see? What do they need? And do they actually have a number one on their team right now?
Well, Ball has been out, of course. They've looked really good at times with him, and maybe he's going to be the number one. Certainly Gordon Hayward is showing some signs of being the player that Utah drafted. But he's not a number one, he's 2-3. So obviously I think Mitch Kupchak is doing a better job than anybody who's been trying to run that team forever. But they're still a significant piece away. And is that a piece to draft? They're not going to be bad enough to have another top pick. So that's where you're going to have to say, all right, Mitch, show us some magic. It takes a really talented general manager to be able to pull off the moves that have to be made for a team to be. When you talk about where Utah is, Dennis Lindsey and David Morway running that team, those guys know that you got to build with the culture, and then you got to understand your pieces so you know where to tweak and when not to, where to develop, where to tweak. Mike Conley is a perfect example. That was a tweak move that was great for them. But is Mitch Kupchak that guy? It's easy when you're the Lakers and everybody wants to play for you. But when you're Charlotte and nobody wants to play there.
And look, Kupchak got run out. Kupchak got run out of the building at Staples Center. Yeah. They're a team that's capped as a first round and out at this point. Mm-hmm. As you said, you have Ball, you have Miles Bridges, who's had a wonderful year going in, but you always wonder and you always worry going into the contract year that they have that year.
Yeah.
It's always a concern.
Michael
Hayward
syndrome.
What'd you say?
It's the Michael Olowokandi syndrome.
Oh, God.
Michael Olowokandi, Jim McIlvaine.
Yeah.
There have been a few. The talent level, there's not a lot of depth. They're a 6 or 7 seed. They're kind of like the Atlanta Hawks were 10 years ago. We always knew they were going to be the 5, the 6, the 7, the 8. And you didn't really care because they never scared anybody.
Right.
And one time they made the good run as the 1 seed. They got swept when they had 4 All-Stars with Corver and Millsap and Teague. And they got swept out by the Bulls. They got swept out in 4 games. Like that's what you're looking with Charlotte. They're on a path to They're on a path to upper tier mediocrity, but mediocrity nonetheless. And Kupchak, as you said, Kupchak got run out of the building in LA. That team was a look. They got Kobe, they got Shaq, they ran with it. They had a bunch of supplementals. That's what it was. I mean, getting Gasol was nice, but he's not someone who I'm looking at is going to be. He hasn't accumulated assets like a Travis Shank that has in Atlanta, where Atlanta has the problem with Atlanta is they got too many moving parts when healthy, and it's hard to maneuver. Charlotte's just short them, and I don't know who they can get. Again, I bring up the name Miles Turner because you need a 5 because they don't have one.
Yep.
And that's the easy name out there. What else is really going to make you a top 4 team? I don't see the player out there for them.
I don't either. I also question this idea that Indiana, are they really ready to totally deconstruct the team when you just threw all that money at Brogdon, 2 years ago, and now you've got Rick Carlisle? You still don't really know that. And LeVert was hurt up until recently.
LeVert's a wonderful player.
He's
a really, really nice player.
He is.
And
are you really blowing it up, or is that
I wouldn't
motivation for the players? Like, hey, we're going to tell Wojnarowski we're going to blow it up, then he'll blast it everywhere and see if it motivates you.
Well, maybe also you kind of get a feel for what's out there.
Yeah.
You know what you see. Look, Sabonis and Turner combined haven't. While I don't think it's as horrendous a mesh as everyone else does, nothing's come of it.
I like Sabonis.
Everyone likes Sabonis. I want Sabonis out in Portland. I think he's perfect out there.
Yeah.
But
you pull that off.
What'd you say?
Yeah.
The problem is with McCollum has. What are you going to trade? I mean, I think they have too much talent to run it off 25 games into Carlisle's. Carlisle's not dealing with a bunch of rookies. It's not the issue. I mean, I know you guys were talking about the Dallas issue before I came on. It's not that. They have talent. I'm kind of surprised that, again, maybe you're right. Maybe it's just they're blowing it up for motivation purposes, just for motivation purposes. I mean, Duarte's a player. Brogdon's a player. Sabonis is a player. Turner's a player. LeVert was my favorite player on the Nets. Mm-hmm. He's a wonderful player if he can stay healthy.
Right.
It's not a team devoid of talent, and you have a good coach who's won a title and knows how to handle mid-tier, veterans. I agree. I don't know why they're talking about blowing it up at this point. You're 25 games into a season.
And it's completely up for grabs. The whole, the second and third seeds well,
that's the same thing with Portland too. Portland has talent. They just don't have the right guy leading the ship. I don't think Chauncey Billups is the right. Bill and I talked about this on the show. Chauncey Billups is not the guy. If you want to keep Damian Lillard in Portland happy, you need to make maybe 1 or 2 tinkering trades for talent, but you need to have an experienced coach. That's why when Rick Carlisle was available, I said that would be a great fit because there's a guy with a superstar with great players around, like guys like McCollum and Nurkic. You could have made something there.
The problem.
They approach the offseason like they're trying to run Damian off. You let Carmelo go. You didn't replace his offense, and you don't have a power forward. And you still don't have a power. They were counting on Zach Collins. Now they don't have him. He wasn't the guy anyway.
They've been counting on Zach Collins for how many years?
A long time. It was like, why?
We're in year 4. This thing better work now.
Why?
2 years. You got a feel of what the guy is. I mean, come on.
While we're starting to wind down a little bit, I got to bring up one of the other hot teams in the Western Conference that we talked about the last 1 or 2 shows, and that's the Memphis Grizzlies. This is where youth is starting to come around, and they're doing things the right way also. And it seems like the Grizzlies always do that. They have a couple off years where they're stockpiling talent, and now it's starting to come together. They're right there at top 4 in the Western Conference. COVID protocols, injuries for whatever teams are going on. Memphis is taking advantage of it, and they're right there.
they've been injured too. Ja Morant.
Yeah.
And they've figured it out for now. I mean, not saying you're not desperate for him to come back, but the fact that they're playing as well as they are with him on the sidelines is.
Look, we were waiting for Jaren Jackson to get healthy. He's played nicely. They are a young, tough team. It feels like a Memphis team.
Mm-hmm.
They're just a tough team, and Taylor Jenkins has done a heck of a job there. And once Ja comes back, look, they're not as talented as Utah. They're not as talented as Golden State. They're not as talented as Phoenix. We know this. But no, they're not a team anyone wants to play either.
No, definitely not.
Because hard work trumps talent when talent doesn't work hard, and you never know.
You said it better than I ever could.
Yeah, it's the truth. And listen, Seth, I appreciate you coming on, joining us. Check out the Seth and Sean show every Wednesday, and they also hop on to Cave Talk Radio and jump in and talk a whole bunch of different topics with our friend Gary Ade. Seth, thanks for joining the show. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Good seeing you again.
You too.
All right, guys, we'll be back in 20 seconds here on the Hardwood Huddle. All right, we're back here on the Hardwood Huddle. Bill, last couple things here. I want to know, any Christmas game memories for you from watching the NBA on Christmas?
Obviously 2011-12, when that was the first game of the season, was.
Oh my God, I was thinking about that too before.
There were some great Lakers Celtics matchups from back in the day. They always seem to have the big matchups for Christmas, and that was the one time I would not. Uh-oh. Did you kill me?
No, I didn't kill you. I'm here.
I had this circle of death. That was the one time I wouldn't cover a game because obviously it's Christmas, but they always had the marquee matchups. You might see Jordan versus Magic on them. It's always like the NBA knows you're home and you don't want to go out, and they're going to put the big stars on the big stage, and you can just bask in that.
I remember back in 2002, Nets Celtics in a blizzard snowstorm. And they were like, it's a sellout crowd here at the Meadowlands. There's 5 people in the stands, ladies and gentlemen. Let's.
Snow.
It was bad. I remember workers were all sitting there saying that they were working on the roads during the game to try and get that open, but it still was like 2 feet of snow. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going that game, buddy. But I will tell you, man, the Christmas Day, I love it. It really is, for an NBA fan, it is like Christmas. You have to watch all that NBA action. So I hope everybody enjoys it this year. Bill, we're going to try and make it on at least one more time before the new year. I thank you. I want to wish you and your family a happy new year and much more basketball to come.
Merry Christmas to everyone watching, or Happy Hanukkah, or Kwanzaa, or whatever you celebrate. Happy that.
Happy Festivus. I got the poll up. I'm ready. Let's go. All right. So that's Bill Ingram. I'm Randy Zellea for the Hardwood Huddle, courtesy of backsportspage.com. Happy holidays, everybody. And we will see you next time right here on the Hardwood Huddle.